Welcome into the NFL Opening Line Report, week number 5 here in the NFL. I am Drew Martin, joined by Teddy Covers as we're getting you on the right side of some of these line moves. Teddy, happy Monday morning to you. Welcome on in, buddy.
Hey, happy Monday to you, Drew. Let's start out, talk about some of the things that happened yesterday from a betting standpoint. Look, the team with the worst record covered every game but two. San Fran covered against Arizona. New England covered against, Dallas covered against New England. But Jacksonville, the weaker record. Buffalo had the weaker record. Houston had the weaker record. We're talking about 1 and 2s versus 0 and 3s or whatever it was. But the weaker record team, Jacksonville, Buffalo, Houston, the Rams, Washington, the Jets all covered. Rookie quarterbacks were another story in betting action yesterday. Rookie QBs 1 and 4 against the spread. Stroud was the one. Richardson for Indiana, Young for Carolina, O'Connell for the Raiders, and DTR in Cleveland all lose and fail to cover. So if you took the simplest possible betting strategy of betting against rookie QBs in week 4, you made money. My clients didn't make money this past weekend, unfortunately. We won the big play on Jacksonville. Had a couple of wrong sides this past Sunday. That being said, we're still better than 60% since week 1 of the NFL preseason. You get a 7-day pass. Get me on a bounce back week in the NFL. Just use Teddy7 at checkout. Get the 7-day pass. Only $79. It'll get you everything in the NFL, college football, and anything else that I release throughout the next 7 days. So again, Teddy7 at checkout. Take advantage of that if you'd like to get on board with this week's selections. Let's get into it, Drew. Bunch of games. 16, no. Only 14 games to talk about this week because the buys start. That being said, let's get right into it.
4 teams on buys, and we're getting into it here, guys. Thursday night action, October 5th, 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific time. We get the Chicago Bears at the Washington Commanders here, Teddy. Seeing Commanders, actually, this line is moving as we are talking. 1 o'clock Eastern here on the East Coast. -7, -6.5, depending where we're shopping right now on the WagerTalk live odds screen. That is the Commanders as the home favorite. 44.5 being the total. Bears at Commanders here, Teddy, in our nation's capital. What are we thinking Thursday night kicking us off?
We have to emergency betting this game right away. It's moving as we speak. Look ahead line here. Washington -4.5 and 43. The look ahead lines are the bettable lines on this week's games that were posted last week. I used the numbers from the Westgate Superbook, and the look ahead here was 4.5. My powering number is 6. The markets opened last night, 6.5. 45, got bet up 6.5, and then 7 this morning, 44.5. 7 is a resistance number. We're seeing buyback on Chicago right now on the books that moved to 7. If you like the Bears, you can get a 7 at this moment. I'm not convinced it'll be there an hour from now. So for what it's worth, if you want your money on Chicago, the +7s are available now. Again, they've been a move this morning. I'm not convinced that it doesn't come back the other way. My number is shorter. The look ahead number is shorter. The opening number was shorter, and we're seeing resistance at 7. So all those factors make me believe that the 7s that we've seen this morning are not going to hold. So Chicago +7 available now. I'm not convinced it's going to be there. Of course, the Bears are coming off a pretty demoralizing loss. They're on a short week with travel. So it's not like we're excited about taking Chicago. Fields was much better against a weaker defense. The first half, 16-16, 231, 3 touchdowns, no picks, not including the Hail Mary at the end of the half. And they're up, 28-7. Second half goes 3 and out, sack, fumble, 6, stopped on downs on 4th and 1 from the Denver 18 instead of a potential game-winning field goal, which now has head coach Matt Eberflus under fire, and then an interception on the final drive. Justin Fields after the game. I think we were in rhythm. Offense coordinator Luke Getsy was dialing it up. Guys were protecting up front. Receivers were getting open. We were definitely in a rhythm. At the end of the day, we lost the game, so it doesn't really matter. Chicago does feel demoralized. The Commanders did a lot of things right yesterday. 8 of 17 on third downs, 2 of 2 on fourth downs, 4 touchdowns and 5 red zone tries, no turnovers. Sam Howell, that's definitely a game we feel that we should have won, and we were capable of winning it. We feel like we can play a lot better, and that's a good thing. We're really close against a good team. And, of course, Howell had thrown 4 picks and was sacked 9 times the previous week. This week, certainly much better. And look, this is a Washington team that we've known that they got off to slow starts. 2020 under Ron Rivera, 2-7 start, 7-9 finish. So they go 5-2 down the stretch. In 2021, they're 2-6, and then they go 5-4 down the stretch. So winning record down the stretch. Last year they were 2-6. They finished 8-1, and again this season a sub 500 team. But Washington had Philly on the ropes, and Riverboat Ron, who has always been going for two, previous in his career, chose not to go for two, and then they punted in overtime, and that was that. And asking him after the game, why did he decide to go for two? Or why didn't he decide to go for two with a chance to win at the end against a tired defense? Well, he said that his offense was gassed, which to me is the most nonsensical answer you can find. Ron Rivera might have cost his team a win yesterday with his lack of aggression, not something we're used to seeing from Riverboat Ron. But obviously, Washington in this scenario, with sevens out there now, they got to win this game by more than a TD. That's not been an easy thing for Washington to do in recent seasons. That said, when you look at the matchup of Washington's defensive line against Chicago's offensive line, advantage Commanders. I can understand why they've taken money, not my money, when it comes to asking them to win by margin on Thursday Night Football.
Emergency betting alert in here at the top of the card Thursday night. And Teddy, I've been doing this show with you for over 5 years. That was the first time I've ever heard you preference an emergency betting alert with if you want your money on Chicago. I don't know if anybody else noticed that. That was good stuff, Teddy. Good start to the show. As we'll flip the script to Sunday, October 8th here, guys. It's a 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 a.m. Pacific kick on the other side of the pond with the Jacksonville Jaguars playing the Buffalo Bills. Bills as the quote-unquote home team here, Teddy, -5.5 or -6. Depending where you're shopping right now, 48.5 being the total. Jacksonville staying over there in England, Teddy. I know you were on them last week. Interested to see if you think that helps them. Also, do note, guys, it is a different stadium. They go from Wembley to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But, Teddy, I'll throw it over to you. Top of the card Sunday, Jacksonville and Buffalo.
Yeah, different stadium for the Jaguars, different hotel for the Jaguars, because the Buffalo Bills apparently booked their hotel for the second week. So the Jags had to go home and change hotels last night, as well as changing stadiums for this week. Look ahead line here. Again, the bettable line on this game last week at this time was Buffalo -4, total of 48. My powering number has the Bills -4.5 on this neutral field. Last night opened 4.5, 5, 48. And this morning we're seeing 5.5 and some sixes starting to pop up on the Bills on this neutral site. I know the sixes are going to hold. I don't know there's enough of them here. But we certainly have seen Buffalo money early on. And you can understand why. I mean, the Bills have looked as good, since that loss to the Jets, that first Monday Night Football, the Bills have looked as good as any team this side of San Francisco. I mean, that offense was clicking yesterday. Josh Allen looked as good as any quarterback in the league. The defense woke up after a slow start. They had a chip on their shoulder type of performance after Miami headlines. Buffalo leads the NFL, most turnovers created. They won the turnover battle here as well, or yesterday. And what they do, 5 of 6 in terms of red zone touchdowns, 11.5 yards per pass attempt. Defensive tackle Ed Oliver talked about the defensive showing yesterday. Burned early by Miami and then pretty much dominating the rest of the game. We're just trying to wake everybody up and make people talk. We want everyone to know this defense is for real, and we got special guys. Worth noting, Tre'Davious White carted off in the third quarter. It looks like he has an Achilles injury. That is an impact injury for Buffalo's pass defense. For the Jaguars, I mean, the defensive line controlled the flow, but the offensive line remains a problem, a real problem. They can't run the football. Travis Etienne, 20 carries, just 55 yards, as long was 7 yesterday. They can't protect Trevor Lawrence at all. And they keep saying, I mean, the offense, the score defensive, they got 7 points in a defensive score, but there's a ton more out there for us offensively. A couple of plays that I missed, and I'm kind of kicking myself over. This is Trevor Lawrence. Josh Allen had 3 sacks in the game. Quote, I'm ready. This is an interesting quote. I'm ready to win games. I want to be the guy for the defense that we can count on. Last week, I felt like I personally let the team down. This week was just get back on track. From a situational standpoint, you think it favors Jacksonville here. You have Buffalo coming off a statement game in which they dominated, traveling overseas. Jags have already been there all week. And Jacksonville, certainly of the two teams, the team with more problems to fix, the more attention to detail right about now. So again, we're seeing 6s pop here for Buffalo. I don't think it gets any higher than that. And I certainly wouldn't anticipate this line moving anywhere near the key number of 7 between now and kickoff. Unless, Buffalo, certainly a team that's attracted some betting market attention of late. But I'm not convinced this is the week that the wise guys are going to say, yeah, let's bet on the Bills again. Lots of sharp bettors had pretty strong positions on Buffalo in yesterday's action. They cashed that bet. I'm not convinced they come back for the next one.
1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific kicks up next here, guys. Houston Texans, Atlanta Falcons. We're seeing Falcons -1. We're actually even seeing a -1 on the other side with the Texans right now, Teddy. 41.5 being the total. Pick'ems out there available. What are we thinking in Mercedes-Benz in the ATL Sunday?
Well, look ahead line here. Atlanta -3.5, 41.5. My powering number is only 1 on the game. The market's open 2.5 last night, 41.5. And as you mentioned, got bet down right away. It's been all Houston Texans money. We may see more, but again, at 1, we're not talking about the keyest number in the NFL. We do see games decided by 1, but it's not a situation here where I'm going to go emergency betting alert. It's not that. Right now, the move's already come for the Houston Texans. And look, I was kicking myself yesterday for not betting on the Texans. I thought I missed the best of the number against Pittsburgh. I was hoping they would lose so we could come back and get them. Houston's a value team. All right. C.J. Stroud took 0 sacks against the Steelers and averaged 10.2 yards per pass attempt. He's thrown for 1,200 yards, which in the history of the NFL, second only to Cam Newton in terms of rookie QBs in their first 4 games. He set an NFL rookie record, 151 pass attempts without an INT. The first rookie since the merger in 1970 with 250 yards, 2 touchdown passes, and no picks in 3 straight games. Texans wide receiver, Nico Collins. Dude is balling. The work he puts in every day, you can tell, shows up in prime time and is only going to get better for him. Worth noting, first win at home since 2021 yesterday. Largest margin of victory since October 2017, winning yesterday's game by 24 points. So, in terms of a Texans team that's been down, there's market support for Houston, and they're deserving of that market support. DeMeco Ryans has this team playing above their heads right now, which is not the case for the Atlanta Falcons. Desmond Ridder, I grade him an F- again. There's some bad quarterbacks in the NFL, bad starting quarterbacks, but I'm going to grade Desmond Ridder right now. If he's not 32, he's 31. Zach Wilson was better than him last night for sure. Bijan Robinson was an A+. The defense was there from start to finish. A quality stop unit, but if the quarterback is the worst starter in the league, it's a problem. Kyle Pitts has 110 yards on 11 catches in 4 games. This guy was the 4th pick of the first round. Drake London, number 8 overall pick, has 117 receiving yards and 11 catches. No quarterback, no offensive line, no production. And of course, Desmond Ridder after the game, I did a terrible job taking care of the ball. We got to find a way to start faster, whatever that may be, however that is. That's just what we got to do. I got to do a better job at taking care of the ball, which is not what I want to hear from a quarterback who's holding the ball too long in the pocket anyway. I don't want a young quarterback saying, well, I got to be better taking care of the ball. I want to say I'm going to take some chances and chuck it around, which is not what Ridder's been doing. And the Falcons aren't protecting him. They're 29th in pass block win rate at 44.4% right now. Houston trending up, Atlanta trending down. The money coming in, showing those current trends.
From one success story at the rookie quarterback to one guy maybe struggling a little bit here, Teddy. The Carolina Panthers and Detroit Lions up next, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific kick. 43.5 being the total. We're seeing the Lions laying 9 at home. We get the Panthers at Lions in the Motor City, Teddy.
Yeah, look ahead line here. Detroit -7 and 44. My powering number has the Lions 10.5-point favorites. Betting markets opened last night, 8.5/9. Total of 44. The 44s are still standing. There are a couple of 43.5 out there right now. But the market has pretty clearly moved to 9 this morning. And look, Carolina's struggling. Only 3-point yards per play on offense yesterday. No run game whatsoever. Miles Sanders just 1.5 yards per rush. They had a 99-yard pick 6 yesterday and lost straight up and against the spread. So it's a 14-point swing. Bryce Young's not good enough. The fumble chick, and of course they had a fumble 6 of their own, which really changed everything in that ballgame. But Young holding the ball too long. The protection hasn't been there. The offensive line isn't there. The offensive line was abused. A lot of injuries for Carolina now. And of course, there's been 164 teams that have started 0-4 in the Super Bowl era. The only one out of those 164 teams to make the playoffs was the 1992 Chargers. So Panther season's over already. Frank Reich. No one is satisfied with progress and not results. We understand we're in results business. We aren't here because we drafted a quarterback number one and saying, well, we'll just build for the future. We are here to win right now. Of course, cluster injuries in the secondary for Carolina, which is not what you want against Detroit. Dante Jackson left the game yesterday with a shoulder injury. And of course, they're already playing without J.C. Horn and Xavier Woods. For the Lions, they get Jameson Williams back from suspension 2 games early. They have extra time to prepare after playing Thursday night. They're capable of pounding the rock behind that offensive line. David Montgomery healthy again. 5 sacks against Green Bay, held the Packers to 12-27 rushing. Look, Lions, we like them on the road. This Jared Goff quote is one to file away for the next road game. Send us anywhere. Line us up against anyone. We feel like we can go in there and beat them. That's a good feeling to have. That being said, played a flat game at home against Seattle, and I'm not convinced that this is the game where you're going to get Detroit's best effort. Carolina's the 0-4 team. Might be hungry. Probably not a game I'm going to get involved with, Drew.
Teddy, good breakdown. Even the 1992 San Diego Chargers being brought in the mix. Little Junior Seau, Stan Humphries. That was like one of my first memories, that team, Teddy. So love it, man. We got next game up, 457-458, Tennessee and Indianapolis. Colts -1.5 is the home favorite, 43 being the total. It's mostly -1 in the hooks here, Teddy. There are a couple just -1 flats. So we get Titans at Colts next game up, Teddy.
Yeah, I'm tempted to. I feel like it's already moved, but we've seen over money here. If you like the over, there is certainly some urgency for Tennessee and Indy. This has everything to do with Tennessee's offense coming back to life. Look headline here, Indy -2, total of 42. My powering number has the game at Pick'em. Opened 141.5. Now we're, again, 40. We're seeing, I guess, 1.5, the prevailing number. There were still ones earlier this morning. But we have seen a little bit of Indy money. And the total's been bet up was 41.5. Now it's 42 this morning. Now we're looking at 43s. There are 43.5s popping up. And, this quote from Ryan Tannehill tells you why you're seeing over money. Quote, no doubt we're growing. I'm proud of our guys, the way we responded, fought through the noise. We were able to come out and play well up front. Our guys up front did a good job in the run game, and then in the pass game, creating some space for the backs and then giving me some time. If Tennessee's offensive line works, or the run game works, the offense works. When the run game doesn't work, their offense doesn't work. They managed only 94 yards against Cleveland, couldn't control the line of scrimmage. This time, they scored 27 unanswered, a game that was pretty easy against Cincinnati. Certainly Tennessee with some positive momentum going into that game. And a team that in a winnable division is thinking that they're live. Indy rallied back from, 23-0. We'll give them credit for that. But they're still 0-6 their last 6 home games. That's worth noting. That's straight up. They're off an overtime loss. That's not a positive situation. And, it's a defense that allowed touchdown, field goal, missed field goal in the first half. Second half, Goff got hurt, and they had a much easier showing of it, but not in overtime. And of course, multiple offensive line injuries for Indy as well. Left tackle Bernhard Raimann, Pro Bowl center Ryan Kelly, both out in concussion protocol. Anthony Richardson, partially was on me, just getting too excited, trying to win the game, but you learn from it. And that's true. Indy, look, they didn't quit. We'll give them credit for that. But of these two teams, Tennessee is a better squad. In this bettor's opinion, the market's not necessarily giving us that opinion in terms of early betting action.
459-460. Next game up, guys. New York Giants, Miami Dolphins. 49.5 being the total. -9 in the hook. That's the Dolphins is the home favorite. Do note the Giants play tonight against the Seahawks. So if you like them tonight, maybe make 2 bets. If not, maybe fade them twice. Not sure, Teddy. I'll throw it over to you. Next game up, Giants, Dolphins, and Hard Rock.
Yeah, I mean, if the Giants look awful tonight, Miami's going to come double digits. But otherwise, I think this line is not one where you have to. If the Giants are going to be bad, if you really think that Seattle's going to smack them, maybe you bet against the Giants in the Miami game as well. Because if the Giants get embarrassed on national TV tonight, the markets aren't going to forgive them. That said, look headline here: Miami 10, total of 50. My powering number is only 8.5 on the game. 9.5, 49.5 heading into Monday Night Football. And look, I mean, the Dolphins' defense is now officially problematic when it comes to playing good quarterbacks. We've seen 2 games this year they played good quarterbacks. 2 games this year they've got absolutely lit up. The Bills lit them up, and the Chargers lit them up on opening day. They finished with 393 yards of offense and a couple of turnovers. They sacked Tua 4 times after the Dolphins had allowed just 1 sack the first 3 games. I like this quote from Mike McDaniel, head coach of Miami. I'd be lying if I was pumped up about anything from our team today. The National Football League is a very humbling game, and if you're not on your stuff and you're playing a team that is, this will happen. Tua, after the game, quote, it's tough when you lose, and you lose like this, but we're not going to blink. I can promise you one thing. We will definitely be better from this. And I hear that quote a lot from coaches saying, yeah, we needed a wake-up call. Yeah, that was good for us that we took that loss. I get that sense for Miami here. The question only is whether the Giants are going to be able to be competitive with them, and if the Dolphins' defense is good enough for them to cover as double-digit chalk.
461-462 rotation number. Next game up, New Orleans Saints, New England Patriots, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific kick here, guys. We get the Patriots -1.5, -2 at one key shop. We get 39.5 at most shops being the total. Saints at Patriots here, Teddy.
Well, I'm going to start with this. I had a big ticket winner with the Jaguars yesterday. I had a wrong side loser with the Saints, and I don't know if the Saints were more wrong side than the Patriots. They were both dead from opening kick. 2 bad bets. So these aren't 2 teams I'm pretty pumped up about this week. Let's put it mildly. At least there was no sweat. You didn't lose any years off your life losing that game in the last minute. They were both turn them off by halftime because you're dead. Well, the Saints actually kept me into the third quarter. Actually, they kept me into the fourth before they were dead. Nonetheless, neither team was any good. Look headline here, New England -2.5, total of 40.5. My powering number is pick'em for the game. And markets 1.5, 2 last night. And that's pretty much the number. Mostly 1.5s out there. Total 39/39.5. We have seen under money for New Orleans and Miami. Which team is worse? New Orleans offense isn't working against any decent defense. It's very janky. Their first 16 pass attempts gave a total of 51 yards. And that was after a miracle 3rd down conversion where the dude made a great catch on an iffy throw from Carr. And it's I watched the game really close. It's an offensive line problem and a quarterback problem. Derek Carr's not letting his receivers make plays. This isn't an offense you can lay points with, even with Kamara back. They scored 4 touchdowns in 4 weeks. Wide receivers aren't open. Carr's checking everything down and holding the ball too long. Offensive line play hasn't been good. And when your QB play isn't good and your offensive line play is good, it's a problem. Defense has been great for the Saints. As underrated a unit as there is in the league. Dennis Allen, head coach. I got to make sure we put a better product in the field next time that we show up. When you get beat like that, you got to look at it. If you just said it was all in the execution, then we'd be like freaking cop-out, right? So I think we got to be better in a lot of areas. Remember, Saints led 17-0 at Green Bay. The second half, 2 weeks ago, and since that time, they've been absolutely awful. But the Patriots were worse, maybe. I mean, the biggest halftime deficit under Belichick in his coaching career in New England, the biggest loss that they've suffered in Belichick's coaching career, maybe since his first year on the job, since 2000. Mac Jones led the offense to 3 points and gave up 14s. He was Desmond Ridder yesterday. Again, we're talking about the quarterbacks at the very bottom of the league. Mac Jones is looking like that now. I'm not convinced the Patriots believe in him in the locker room, and certainly his performance in the field hasn't merited anything but distrust. And again, so far this season, he has 898 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks, and a lost fumble. He's had 3 different offensive coordinators in 3 seasons, and the Patriots are undermanned at wide receiver, but New England's offense is beyond problematic. And, of course, yesterday the defense collapsed as well. Belichick, we're a lot better team than we showed out there tonight. Need to do a better job coaching, playing, not much to say. Worth noting, Jack Jones, Marcus Jones from the secondary already on IL. They lost the star rookie cornerback Christian Gonzalez yesterday, and their pass rusher Matthew Judon checked their status, but now you have cluster injuries in the secondary and the pass rush for a team that has no offense These are problems for New England moving forward.
Teddy bringing the heat here on the NFL Opening Line Report, 10 a.m. Pacific time each and every Monday on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Guys, if you could help us out, smash that like button. Feel free to chime in below in the comments section. Teddy and myself will be in there throughout the week, answering any questions, commenting back with you. Let us know who you're looking to bet on. Any questions, more than welcome. We're about halfway through here, guys, making our way down. Huge shout out to the live chat box as well. Paul in the house saying, what is up from Essex, England? He was at Wembley Stadium this past weekend. That's pretty cool, Paul. Have Cash in the house, Titan CT, UC Panda, all of you guys, Raven Ron. Welcome on in. Thanks for chiming in, and thanks for being a part of NFL Opening Line Report. Next game up here, Teddy. It's the last 1 o'clock Eastern slated game. Baltimore Ravens, Pittsburgh Steelers. We are seeing Ravens minus 4.5 point road favorites, 39 the total in the Steel City, Teddy.
Yeah, I'm going to emergency betting alert this one as well. We're going to talk about the total right here. Money pouring in on the under for Baltimore. Pittsburgh was 41.5 at the look ahead, was 40 last night, was 40 earlier this morning. There are still 39.5s out there. The markets are moving to 38, 38.5. If you like the under, there is some urgency. Again, you can find 39.5 out there right now. I'm not convinced, both here in Vegas and in the global markets, and I'm not convinced that number is going to be there an hour or two from now. So if you like the under for Baltimore, Pittsburgh, get involved sooner rather than later. Look at line here was only Baltimore minus 2.5, 41.5. My power rating number after the games yesterday, Baltimore minus 3. Markets open 3.5/4 and 40. Moved overnight 4.5/5 this morning. That's where they are as we speak. And look, Baltimore was impressive yesterday, no question. 4-4 in the red zone. Lamar Jackson in perfect sync with his wide receivers. Ravens off a loss might be something to pay attention to, especially considering the fact that they were missing their 2 receivers, their starting left tackle. The starting right tackle got hurt throughout the game. And the secondary now has cluster injuries. 2 more DBs got hurt for Baltimore yesterday. So that is certainly a concern, and a concern for underbettors here. And yet the markets are going that way right now. But, of course, Pittsburgh, the red zone offense has issues. Kenny Pickett's not seeing open receivers. Don't know if Pickett's going to play. Pickett got hurt in the game yesterday. The latest status on him, and I'm sure we'll find out more later in the day. But the latest status, he's already out. So it'll be Mr. Trubisky, and the markets aren't going to move much from Pickett to Trubisky. They really won't. Mike Tomlin said there was some urgency off of the debacle in Houston yesterday. Quote, "We've got to make some changes. That was an ugly product we put out there today. We're not going to do the same things and hope for a different outcome. We'll put those changes in place in our preparation this week." Defense had 0 sacks and gave up 300 yards passing. That's not what we expect from Pittsburgh on a week-in, week-out basis. And the power rating difference between Pickett and his backup, it's there. It's relatively minimum, maybe a point and a half. The markets aren't going nuts with Pickett's injury. That's why I had to double check that he was already out. I'm like, I know he got hurt. I didn't see his status this morning. And usually if it's out there, see a bigger move when the starter goes down. Not in this instance for Pittsburgh. Pickett, not well regarded in the betting marketplace yet. And I can understand why. He hasn't been very good.
Next couple games here, guys. 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific kicks. Cincinnati Bengals, Arizona Cardinals up next here, Teddy. Man, we're seeing the Bengals minus 3 point road favorites, 44 being the total, 43.5 as well. So we get the Bengals at the Cardinals in the desert. Kind of interesting handicap here, Teddy.
Sure is, and it's a buy low opportunity. Look at the look-ahead line here. Look-ahead line, Cincy minus 7. 42.5 was the total. My powering number, Cincy minus 5.5. Markets open 4.5/4 last night, 42.5. Got bet down to 4 this morning, and boom, it's already down to 3. Nobody betting on Cincinnati. Total still has actually been bet up a little bit. It was 42.5 this morning. Now we're seeing 43.5 and even some 44s out there, although I'm not anticipating this is going to go a whole lot higher. And, Arizona has the type of defense you probably want to be betting overs with right now. Brock Purdy was 20 of 21 yesterday, and Arizona allowed 5 touchdowns and 5 red zone tries. Now, San Fran, as good as any team there is in the league into the red zone offensive efficiency, but this is not a one-game problem for Arizona. We'll give them a credit. Arizona, they were down 21-3. They went for a fake punt from their own 21-yard line, down 21-3, which is telling you what the coach is thinking. Executed it, and they got a touchdown before halftime, and kind of a tough beat if you had Arizona plus the points in that ballgame. But certainly, from an effort standpoint, you couldn't give them credit. They fought, even in a game where they were slapped around in. And they had a couple chances to come through the back door at the closing seconds. Zach Ertz with a key drop for Cardinals backers. For Cincinnati, they were the popular choice in Tennessee on all the parlay cards. Arthur DeCesar told us that last week from the Westgate Superbook. Well, it wasn't turnovers yesterday. They only had one trip to the red zone. They can't stop the run and they can't throw the football. Zach Taylor, we just got to be better. Play calls have to be better. We got to put ourselves in better positions. That starts with me. And as you know, when a number's called, guys instead of make some plays. The Joe Burrow quote, obviously disappointing today. We've got a lot to get fixed. I mean, Burrow still has the calf injury. He still hasn't looked right. 165 passing yards and a lost fumble in a game that his team was never in it. Yesterday, again, one trip to the red zone for Cincinnati. They're having problems right now when it comes to controlling the game in the trenches on either side of the football. Not necessarily. And I can understand why the money's come for Arizona. That said, look-ahead line here was 7 last week. It's 3 right now. Both quarterbacks expected to play. So that's a pretty big adjustment for 1 week.
467, 468, the rotation number. Next game up, Philadelphia Eagles, LA Rams. We are seeing the Eagles -4.5. There is a -5 out there as the road favorite, Teddy. 50 being the total. Eagles at Rams. Cross-country trip here for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, look at line here. Philly 6.5, total 46.5. My powering number, Philly -4.5. The market's open 4.5/5 and 47 last night. We've seen over money, as you mentioned. There were 48s this morning. There were 49s this morning. Now we're looking at 50/50.5. So we've seen a big move on this total, but that's behind us now. I'm not going to emergency betting alert anymore. It's gone if you missed that number. And obviously we're looking right now with Philadelphia, basically, 4.5/5. What we saw. The Eagles are 4-0 and they haven't played a good game yet, which is, I guess, a positive sign for Philadelphia in the fact they're 4-0 and they haven't played a good game yet. They haven't played 60 minutes of good football. Nick Sirianni, that's not good for me. We have to win in overtime. There's a lot of anxiety going into that. Jalen Hurts now 21-1, straight up his last 22 regular season starts. 6 QBs in the Super Bowl era have won 21 games over a 22 start span. Listen to these names where Jalen Hurts is with: Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana. And now Jalen Hurts. There's one other guy, Jim McMahon, who's on the list. But yeah, 21 games over a 22 start span. You're joining some pretty elite company. Sirianni, quote, I thought it was his best game this year. I thought he was clutch. Jalen Hurts. I think a win like this does so much for the spirit of a team. So some positive mo for Philadelphia. For LA, Stafford's got issues right now in terms of his hip injury. He was on the field at the end of the game for the final drive. But, quote, the hardest part was kind of shutting down the leg a little bit to where you'd step and push, and normal leg, it was step and push and then not normal. The muscles were kind of shutting down, but I just kept going. I knew it was going to be one of those things that there was pain/function. So as long as I could keep it going on the sideline, I was going to stay in there. Stafford, an amazing QB, coming off a great game, off an overtime win. He's got a bad defense behind him, and I'm not sure he's going to be 100% here. And Philly still hasn't played a good game. So for what it's worth, the Rams getting some betting market attention, the over getting some betting market attention early for this one.
Teddy, next game up, we had to do the 4:25 Eastern time slot, 1:25 Pacific. New York Jets, Denver Broncos. We're seeing 43 being the total. -2 now, that's the Broncos. They were -3 last night here, Teddy, so a full point move here towards the Jets. And I'll tell you, Teddy, off of that last night, Sunday night game against the Chiefs, Zach Wilson, I think that was the best game I've ever seen him play in the NFL. Throw it over to you, Jets at Broncos.
Yeah, well, Zach Wilson, he's no Desmond Ritter. Look at line here. Broncos -3 and 41. My powering numbers, Broncos only 2. Last night, as you mentioned, opened 3 and 40.5. We're looking at 2.5/42 today, and the 2.5s have been bet down to 2. I don't know that it goes down much further, but obviously the 3 is already gone. And yeah, Zach Wilson was decent last night, maybe pretty good. We stood toe-to-toe with Mahomes at the end of the game with Zach Wilson making the mistake on the fumbled snap that he can't do in that spot. Defense held KC to 0 for 4 in the red zone. There are things to like about the New York Football Jets right now. I think more than Denver. Though I'll give Denver credit. They looked into the abyss. You're down 20-7 in Chicago, and you're looking into the abyss as an 0-4 start. Russell Wilson, quote, I knew how we left the locker room at halftime, how we stepped on the field in the second half, that we were going to fight our way back. Everybody just believed. It was a beautiful demonstration of resilience. Sean Payton. There'll be some tough tape tomorrow. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. We're going to play a lot better teams on our schedule. Chicago played like a bottom feeder. Broncos, not a team I'm comfortable laying points with. I'll leave it at that. And the markets are telling us they're not excited about laying points with Denver, especially Denver coming off a W either.
Next game up, speaking of Sunday Night Football, the team that played the Jets, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Minnesota Vikings. Next game up here, -5.5, Teddy. That is the Chiefs as the road favorite. 52 in the hook being the total. We get the Chiefs at the Vikings.
Yeah, the money's come for Minnesota right here. Look at line, -6.5, 52.5. My powering number is 6.5. Opened 6 and 53 last night, and we're looking at 5/5.5s today. We've seen a little bit of under money for a Chiefs game. Look, KC 200 on the ground, 200 through the air against a quality defense. They didn't get touchdowns in the red zone. That's what allowed last night to be a close game. But they're doing things right. And of course, the second half of that game wasn't good. 3 and out, a first down and then punt, a 14-play, 80-yard field goal drive, and a 15-play drive to burn the clock after the Jets fumble. This is an under team, even though that game went over last night at 41.5/42, got to 43. KC is not about the big plays on offense. It's about grinding yards, keeping the defense off the field. Minnesota's not necessarily an under team, though. And Cousins threw the 99-yard pick 6, and then the defense. Really, the fumble 6 for Minnesota yesterday might have really changed the trajectory of their entire season. All right, they're down 13-7. Carolina's driving. The game could be over. People are sniping at the sidelines. And then a fumble 6, they get the lead. They get another touchdown. They get momentum. They hang on for the win. They allowed only 3 yards per play, gained 6. Justin Jefferson remains as dangerous as any weapon in the NFL. Kevin O'Connell, pretty happy with the defense. We gave up the interception and returned it directly in our points early. Those guys fought off that feeling of woe is me or here we go again. Our guys weren't having it. We found a way to piece together a complimentary win. Won't be easy this week against KC, especially with the Chiefs starting to click on both sides of the football.
2 games left, guys. Fire away any questions in the live chat box if you're watching live. And feel free to comment below on the YouTube channel. We'll answer any questions on next week's show here, guys. Sunday night and Monday night games to end it. Teddy, we get a big one Sunday night. Big name matchup here. A lot of eyeballs going to be on this one. Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers. We're seeing Niners -3.5. There is a -4 out there. 45 being the total. Cowboys at 49ers.
Yeah, the markets are telling us very clearly which of the 2 teams they think is better, and that team is San Francisco. I don't blame them. San Fran. No teams look better than San Fran this year. For much of the regular season, no team looked better than San Fran last year. Brock Purdy still hasn't lost a regular season start, 9-0 in his 9 tries. Look at line here, San Fran 3.5 and 46. My powering number is San Fran 4.5. 3.5, 45.5 last night, and that's basically the number we're seeing now, 45 as opposed to 45.5. There are a couple of 4s out there. So a little bit of under money, but nothing significant. And again, Purdy goes 20 of 21, 12.3 yards per pass attempt, 30 first downs for San Fran yesterday, 5 touchdowns and 5 red zone tries. Hard to do better than that. That being said, San Fran's, they got 30 points in every game this season. 4th straight game. Purdy's quote, this isn't a pound your chest. This is this is what we do. Quote, everybody just did their job. just sort of kept it simple. The quick king stuff was on point early, and it got us into a rhythm. This is a team that expects to win every week. And obviously, given their playoff failures, well, Dallas had a few playoff failures as well. Nonetheless, San Fran looking at this, obviously, both these teams look at this as a huge ball game. The Cowboys have an issue that we're not talking about or hasn't been talked about. They went 1 for 4 in the red zone yesterday. They went 2 of 6 in the red zone against the Jets. They went 1 of 5 in the red zone against the Cardinals. Against the teams that they faced, it hasn't mattered. The Jets, the Cardinals, the Patriots yesterday. Against San Fran, you have to execute in the red zone and score touchdowns. Mike McCarthy called it a blinking red light during the week, and it's still blinking. Of course, that being said, defense, another multi-turnover forced game. Dallas continues to win the turnover battle week in, week out. That makes all the difference for Cowboys backers. That defense under Dan Quinn has been a wrecking crew. Yesterday's game, no exception, and this is for sure going to be the toughest defense that Brock Purdy and company has faced so far this regular season. That being said, San Fran by far a big step up in class for a Dallas team that has largely feasted on weaklings thus far.
Monday nighter to end it here, guys. Green Bay Packers, Las Vegas Raiders. Teddy, we are seeing the Packers anywhere from -1.5 to -2.5, mostly -2 flats right now as we're talking Monday morning, guys. 44 being the total. Packers at Raiders in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, and this line's going to move based on Jimmy G's status. You know, Garoppolo was in concussion protocol this past week. Aiden O'Connell, who was great in the preseason, well, the regular season is not preseason. And I'll give the Raiders credit. They bounced, Chargers are a hard team to lay points with. But the Raiders did fight in yesterday's game and came back and made things interesting. But, O'Connell took look at line here. Pick'em, 43.5. My powering number, Green Bay -2. Opened last night, Green Bay -1, 43.5. This morning, we've seen nothing but Packers money, 1.5, 2s, or even some 2.5 starting to pop up. I'm not convinced it gets to 3. It's all going to depend on Jimmy G's status, so I'm not going to emergency betting alert this because it's we'll see if Garoppolo suits up or not. But he's a good notch or two better than O'Connell, which is no surprise for this better. Josh McDaniels after the game, and again they get 3.8 yards per play and 3 turnovers. It's not going to cut it in any game. Quote: "We put ourselves in a hole here, and I thought our team fought hard and fought back. We're going to have to clean up some of the things we're doing to put us in those situations. Don't have to feverishly scramble back at the end." The market's not excited about the Raiders right now, and I don't blame them. Nothing I've seen from the Raiders from the beginning of preseason has made me think that they're anything but a mediocre to bad football team. As for Green Bay, they're coming off a pretty ugly showing themselves. They were down 27-3 at halftime, outgained 284-21 in the first half against the Lions. That's back-to-back deficits at halftime of 17-plus points. That's the first time in franchise history the Green Bay Packers have been down by 17-plus in back-to-back weeks at halftime. Jordan Love, quote, "I think offensively as a whole, we just got to start faster. We don't start fast, we kind of get behind, and it's hard running the football. So I think we just got to start faster. But not going to be easy when it comes to their offensive line issues." Left guard Elton Jenkins out. David Bakhtiari on injured reserve. And there were additional injury concerns for Green Bay on Thursday night. So you do want to check the status of that OL. That said, I think the Packers are better than the Raiders. And it's more likely to sound like a Green Bay home game here in Las Vegas than it will be to sound like a Raiders home game.
Love it, Teddy. Great breakdown on the Monday Nighter. Overall, man, a couple questions here. You brought up the Dallas Cowboys. I thought that was great in terms of their red zone failures. You threw out some great stats there. Do you think that's repeatable? Teams getting down there and then struggling in the red zone. Is that something you would look to kind of continue until something changes?
Sure. I mean, it's not a perfect stat. If you look at teams that struggle in the red zone versus teams that execute in the red zone, you will see some fairly dramatic differences over the course of the season from one game to the next. It's like any other stat. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. That said, in general, teams that struggle to score touchdowns are going to continue to struggle to score touchdowns until proven otherwise. When the execution isn't there in the red zone, I need to see the red zone execution where I say, oh yeah, that's going to be fixed. That's a problem that's fixed. Dallas's problem is not fixed in the red zone. When you see a team that consistently scores touchdowns in the red zone, again, you expect some reversion to the mean, but the teams that run well and have QBs who can fit into tight windows, they tend to be better red zone teams. The teams that turn the ball over, don't have the offensive line protection, that don't have any kind of balance on offense, those tend to be weaker teams in terms of red zone production. Dallas doesn't fall into those categories. Their offensive line is pretty good. They have a balanced offense. They should be better than they are, but that's one I'm going to be reactive to, not proactive to. I want to see the Cowboys execute better in the red zone before I believe that they're capable of doing that on a consistent basis.
Sure. And one thing I've noticed with just listening to quarterbacks talk about it is, and you mentioned it, the windows are tighter. I kind of try to correlate it with quarterbacks' accuracy and fitting the ball into to kind of tight windows there and try to go off of that. But man, great stuff. We got some questions here in the live chat, also from last week's show. Ken S. saying, ask Teddy how he keeps track and knows so much about each of the games. Also, speaking of the red zone, do you watch the red zone? Of course, he's talking about the red zone channel.
Never. I never watch the red zone channel. I've got my games on individually. Right. So in my office, I have 3 TVs. 3 big screens. I'll watch 3 games, and then I'll watch 3 more. I'll watch a Thursday night game, and I'll watch a Sunday night game. So over the course of the weekend, I'm going to see at least half the teams play. And when I say I watch 3 games, a lot of times I'll switch around and watch a 4th or a 5th game, especially if one game turns into a blowout. So most of the time, I'm going to see, more than half the teams play every given week. And I'm watching. I'm paying attention. I got my laptop. I'm taking notes. I'm switching around the volume for the 3 TVs because you pick up stuff from the announcers sometimes. And then after the games, you talk about what happens on Sunday night. The games end about 4:30 here in Vegas. The Sunday night game starts, about an hour later. And usually that's when I got to stretch. I go out. I go for a little walk. I do something with the boy. And I come down. I sit down, I take about an hour. And I'll sit down at the start of the Sunday night game, and I go through every box score, every recap, every play-by-play. And I go through all the, that's how you go through it. It takes me usually 3-4 hours, depending on how fast I'm working. And as I'm watching Sunday night game, I'm going through all the data from what just happened. So I watch a lot, and then I read a lot. That's how you learn about the NFL. You watch a lot and you read a lot. I would encourage you to do the same if you want to know everybody. It's not like I'm doing it. I came out here, I didn't know any more than you. So it's not like this is something that anyone can't do. I'm sure you can do it. It's a matter of focus and experience. And expect long days on Sundays.
Yeah. And get out for that walk too. Get some sunshine. You go full day Saturday all day in front of multiple TVs, full day Sunday, man. That's a lot.
Well, and Saturday's got 4 sessions. You have the 9 o'clock games, you have the 12:30 games, you have the 4/4:30 games, and then I always sit for the late ones. I'm going through box scores by the late games, but those 7:30 games, I always watch them because a lot of times you're picking up great info from those late games, and everyone on the out east isn't watching anymore. So, Saturday's a long day in front of the TVs, and you got to be just as focused at the end of the night as you do at the beginning of the night, especially if you're live betting. So then you talk about Sundays, and yesterday, of course, I had the big ticket early, so I'm up early watching. There was 3 sets of games yesterday before the late game, and then you got to sit down and do all the work. Yeah, weekends are not a time for socializing. They're not a time for hanging out with the wife. They're not a time hanging with the kids. For me, weekends are work time this time of year exclusively, and that's just I wake up Saturday, work all day. Wake up Sunday, work all day. That's just how it is. If you want to be good at this, that's what it'll take.
Absolutely, guys. And I know Teddy is family, beautiful family, by the way. And I'll never forget visiting you, Teddy, and your son, Isaac. He goes, oh, football season's coming. I hate football season. I never forget that, man. Thought that was funny. We got Bam Golf in the house. Teddy, first off, do you live bet? And can you give Bam and the listeners any advice from live betting? He knows the basics, but are you taking anything away from it? One thing I'll add, Bam, and I learned this from Teddy, flipping through the channels, when the sideline reporter comes on, I'll never forget Teddy telling me this, listen to what the sideline reporter is saying, because it's usually injuries, something to do on the sideline. So Teddy, I'll throw it over to you.
Sure. Yes, I live bet. I don't live bet every game. I don't live bet every day, but I live bet a fair bit. Mostly what I'm looking for live bet is situational. All right. I want teams at a better point spread than I could get them before kickoff. A team that's had faced some adversity and is now showing signs they're going to be able to get back into the ballgame. One game I live bet yesterday. After Minnesota got the fumble 6, even though you're not supposed to live bet them right there, I'm like, that was the momentum Minnesota needed. Minnesota was the one game where I stood up with a big live bet yesterday, right after that. Because that fumble, it felt when it happened, I felt like this just saved their season. And it ended up working out fine in that regard. But a big momentum-changing play, even after it. You love to get your wager down and get Minnesota plus money. But when the momentum changes after halftime, sometimes it's hard to pull that back. So those are definitely situations that I'm looking for. The momentum changers do matter. And yesterday it did in Minnesota's favor. But I mean, in terms of live betting seminar, there's 100 things to talk about. It could take up the whole show. We should do that one time, but not in the middle of football season. We should do a live betting breakdown. Maybe the once this off season, we should do that. That'd be a good show to do.
Okay, yeah, maybe in the off season, guys. Grant asking one. Teddy, this might be tough. If not, we could come back to it next week, just off the top of your head. Is there a team that you have changed from bet on to bet against since the start of the season?
Oh, I'm sure there are. Yeah, they go back and forth. Yes. But I'm going to have, bet on. But again, it's bet on what was bet on this past week may not be bet on next week. But yeah. So Buffalo was a team that I had real questions about the Bills coming into the season. I didn't like their preseason. I didn't like week 1. And unfortunately, that opinion cost me a couple of bets. And Buffalo's clearly not a bet against team. They're just fine now. So that's one that stands out. Cincinnati,
Yeah.
We thought they were bet on. They're not. The Bengals right now, and I wonder if I still have them power rated too high. But the pretty significant market adjustment for Cincinnati. That's a team that obviously wasn't nearly as good as bettors thought they were, myself included.
Kind of correlated with that, we got Truman asking, how many weeks do you need to justify margin of victory as a legitimate handicapping stat? I would say, Teddy, not much, because the markets will change very quickly if a team's blowing the other team out. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I find margin of victory to be a less predictive stat than some. All right. Okay. Obviously, the good teams are going to blow teams out, but Miami scores 70 and have a 50-point margin of victory. And well, now they lose by 28 yesterday, but you'll see distortions in terms of average margin of victory. That's not necessarily a true indicator of how good a team is, at least in my opinion. It's an interesting question. It's one I want to think about, but it's not one that I've got a perfect answer for you off the top of my head.
Teddy, great stuff, man. I know we're up against it time-wise, but I'll throw it over to you for kind of final thoughts here for the show. And guys, feel free again to comment below. We'll be in there throughout the week answering any questions. Please smash that like button. But Teddy, any final thoughts here for the show and anything quickly on the Monday Nighter tonight?
Yeah, so look, I don't try to sell a lot on the show. The show's about information. It's not about sales. That being said, you want to get on board. I'm pissed off this week. It's a good day to get on board. 7-day all-access pass, just $79. Just use promo code Teddy7 out. Checkout. You'll get every play through Monday Night Football of next week. And I'm not playing the game tonight. We've seen some money for Seattle. If I had to play it, I'd probably my choice was Seahawks or pass, and I decided to pass. So not a game that I got involved with. I don't anticipate this number is going anywhere right now. 1.5, 2, 2.5. It'll stay in that range between now and kickoff.
He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. Guys, that does it for the show. Smash that like button, comment below, and have a great week. We'll talk next week. Cash those tickets.